I'm Forrest Griffin.
Brian Caraway.
Anisha Tate.
What's up, guys? This is Joseph Benavidez, UFC flyweight.
Hi, this is Greg Jackson, and you're listening to It's MMA-Zing, and that is an amazing pun.
Get it? Like MMA, but amazing? Amazing.
Radio.
Greetings and salutations, and welcome to another episode of It's MMAzing podcast. I am here. Bobby gave me a look that totally threw me off. I am here, not alone. I am here with Dr. Law.
Ahoy.
And also Kid Presentable.
Because someone's always got to say it. Sup?
Thank you. And we are down one Lavender Gooms this week, but a lot to discuss. We just are coming off of UFC 260. We have a new heavyweight champion, and we also have our first vaccinated member of the crew. Bobby, how does it feel to be completely immune to COVID-19?
I mean, I got to wait a couple weeks till I'm totally immune. Let me just say, that second shot is a bit of a doozy.
That's what they say.
I just laid in bed all of yesterday, basically. My dog thought I was dying.
How do you feel today, though? After one day of rest, day two
I was pretty
of
okay.
being vaccinated.
Yeah,
okay.
I'm doing okay. I mean, everybody should do it. It's worth it. So,
I haven't even gotten my first shot yet, but I know I have this Simpsons clip queued up for when I do get my shot, and it's when Mr. Burns goes, "So you're saying I'm completely indestructible?" It's like, actually, no. The slightest breeze, completely indestructible. Bobby, that's you right now. You can go around hugging all the townspeople. Dude, kissing babies again?
Real talk, I can't wait for you guys to get it so that we can just go eat at a restaurant. That's really it. That's all I want to do is go eat at a restaurant. That's it. That's all I want to do. It's very low.
That is happening very, very soon. And another person I'm sure is feeling indestructible right now is Francis Ngannou, who captured his heavyweight championship belt from Stipe this past Saturday. And because I was the lone person picking Francis to win this fight, I thought it would only be suitable that I break
Congratulations, by the way, sir. Apologies for interrupting, but congratulations for being the one that was right by picking the favorite.
I don't give myself full credit because while I did pick the person right, my analysis was 100% off, and that's what I care about more. Just luckily picking one of two fighters to win is not, I don't think that's much of an accomplishment. To break down the fight and have it come to fruition the way I broke it down would have been much sweeter, but that's not really what happened. Last week I talked about I wanted to see Francis be aggressive and really go after it and make Stipe make mistakes. And we saw the opposite, which was, the correct strategy. His coaches really had him tuned up for this fight. And I think it counterbalanced Stipe's strategy, which the first round was, pretty ho-hum. There wasn't a ton of action. I think Stipe really expected Francis to come out there guns blazing, try to get him out there quick, which is what happened in the first fight, which I incorrectly remembered or recalled. But we saw a really calm, collected Francis, and we saw what I really liked about this fight. We talked about it last week. The lead up to this rematch, we didn't really learn a lot new from Francis. We always knew that he had crazy power. We knew that he's super aggressive and he's extremely dangerous in the first opening round. But we didn't really see a lot of new skill sets displayed, and we saw a lot of that in this fight. He utilizes kicks a lot more. He switched stances and threw a really great high kick that kind of rocked Stipe a little bit. Probably what's getting the most talk of the town is, midway through that first round, Stipe shot in for a shot, and Francis, while he didn't immediately have the right hand position to fend off that single leg, he quickly did dig in the underhooks, and more importantly, he sprawled out. And I think that's really where a lot of people were impressed, was like, okay, this guy's learning wrestling. And then to cap that off from the sprawl, he swept around, took his back, got back control, and then took Stipe down and landed. He didn't have a lot of time to land some good ground and pound, but he did what he could. And then he kind of continued to wrestle Stipe for a second, which I thought DC had the right analysis. Like, he shouldn't be doing this. He's going a little too far, which again, you have to give more credit to Francis. He also stopped. Once he kind of got back and he knew, like, okay, I don't have an advantageous wrestling position. I don't have his back anymore. I'm going to go back to standing. When in between the first and second round, Stipe's corner kind of told him to get more aggressive. Steph, you want to chime in?
Oh, I mean, it's nothing serious. It's just, I don't know about you guys. When he hit that sprawl, I had like that Happy Gilmore moment of like, Happy learned how to putt.
Yeah, I was going to say, I almost pooped myself a little. I'm like, Uh-oh.
That was his weakness, guys. That was it. That was your chance. That was your chance to stop this monster.
Yeah, I'm like, uh-oh. We have a problem.
Yeah, and, going off of that, I think Stipe knew going into the second, and his corner told him he needed to get a little bit more aggressive. Francis wasn't going to tire himself out with the pace that he was setting, so Stipe kind of had to make him tired. He had to make this guy work. And what I liked going into that second round, as Stipe did get more aggressive, we saw early glimpses of what would be the finishing blow, which every time Stipe would try to get in the pocket to throw jabs, Francis had a counter left hook lined up and ready to go. Eventually, he would land that left hook and finish the fight. But before that, he did a right straight into kind of like a step left jab or a left straight, which rocked Stipe, had him hurt. And then we saw a little bit of that berserker of Francis. I think once Francis got that left straight and kind of rocked him good, he went a little crazy. He got in a clinch position. He threw a lot of punches. He threw a really good uppercut. And then after that uppercut, he kind of chased Stipe. He threw a big left hook, overcommitted, missed, very reminiscent of that first fight. And that's where Stipe had his best shot, which, DC also called was kind of the worst thing to happen. He landed a nice counter right straight on Francis, and he incorrectly thought that was the tides changing in his factor, right? He thought he had Francis hurt. He went on the attack, and when he went on the attack, he got hit with that big counter left hook. And that punch was the end of the fight. Francis finished it with a big hammer fist to close it out. But it was a fantastic showing from Francis. It was not exactly what I thought he would do to get the win, but it wasn't, going into that second round, it definitely seemed like, okay, this guy's learned and he's going to wait for that moment to materialize. And once it did, he did capitalize on it. So Bobby, I do want to go to you. Now that we have a new champion, obviously, after any card, it's always about, what's going to happen next, and there's a couple interesting fights for Francis. There's obviously, I think a lot of people outside of, I think the elephant in the room is Jon Jones, right? Like we know he's going up to heavyweight. He's been talking about, there's been lots of talk that when he does move to heavyweight, he's going to get an immediate title shot.
They said that before the pay-per-view. That Dana White at the press conference was talking about how Jon Jones probably fights the winner. So,
I will say, I only watched the top 3 fights of this card, and
it's
nothing
for the best.
else besides
Honestly, it's for the best. I'm realizing I dislike the sport when I get out of the realm of the bell-to-bell action. I start disliking everybody.
Yeah, that's why I cut that stuff completely out.
It's just the
fights, and not even like post fight stuff. But I mean, I think that the cards that are kind of on the table, right? I think Jon Jones is obviously the big money ticket, and we're going to get into it. There's a lot of back and forth going on with that. I think another fight that's potentially interesting and could be disastrous is him and Derek Lewis again. Derek Lewis has a win over him. He's the only guy that's beaten him in a good long while, and he's definitely a credible challenger. He's right up there in the rankings. And I think off into the wings is Gane, right? Ciolo Gane. I think is kind of there. I think he needs one more win to kind of get in that picture. But Bob, I want to know, where do you think Francis goes from here? What do you want to see? What do you think's most likely? And then also give me your thoughts on Stipe and where we might see him next.
I think there's one real choice here. I don't know what the fuck we're talking about. I mean, I know why we're doing it. I'm not an idiot. Why we're talking about other people here. The answer is Jon Jones. Like, we have arguably the greatest fighter ever. Definitely the greatest light heavyweight ever. Finally willing to do what we all wanted him to do.
Mm-hmm.
And we have against him a supremely marketable heavyweight champion in Francis Ngannou. I had every casual MMA friend of mine texting me afterwards about like, oh shit, you think Jon Jones can beat him? Yada, yada, yada. That is the answer here. I don't even know what we're talking about. Like, I was at that Derek Lewis fight. It remains one of the worst fights anybody's ever seen. There's a myriad of reasons there. Well, really, there's 2 reasons. Francis Ngannou was gun shy like hell, and Derek Lewis had a bad back. I don't imagine we would get the same fight this time around.
That would be horrible.
Okay. That being said, and I love Derek Lewis. We all love Derek Lewis as much as we can. It's not the fight. The fight is Jon Jones. They need to make this happen. All right. And with Stipe, honestly, I think we all need to be thankful that we had, and I'm not saying he's definitely never going to regain that title, because he's 1-on-1 with this guy. But I think we all got to be thankful for having a heavyweight champion, as the intercom goes off in my parents' house here. A heavyweight champion like Stipe, who was truly the greatest heavyweight ever, never did anything to embarrass the sport, which is very rare at this point with a lot of our other fighters. did everything right, quite frankly. He could have been more interesting. But you know what? He literally knocked everybody out he fought. He did not go to decision with these people. What did you want him to do? Well, the only ones he went to decision with was DC, right?
I think so. Yeah, I was going to say, I think the second DC fight.
What do we want from a guy? He's the heavyweight champion. He's a goddamn hero. He knocks everybody out. Oh, he went to decision with Francis, too, 3 years ago. But, like, he had no boring fights. And I know we're all quick to be excited about Francis, and God knows I am, too. But just, I hope we all remember, that's the GOAT right there. That's the heavyweight GOAT.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think obviously the metric has definitely been title defenses, right? I think Stipe holds that GOAT at heavyweight because he's got the 3 title defenses, which I don't think is, not imaginable that someone else can, do the same thing. So, Steph, I wanted to bring it to you. I mean, obviously, Jon Jones is hovering in the wings. We've known that he's going to move to heavyweight for a long time. I'm sure you heard Dana kind of throw him under the bus. I honestly just think that's him just playing this ego card. He's trying to get Jones to bite on not, renegotiating the contract and having to pay more for that big fight. But I think that's what we all want to see, right? More or less.
Yeah, I think it's a given. Derek Lewis, with all due respect, he's just the leverage. That's all he is.
Right.
He's the negotiating leverage for the UFC to be like, well, in fairness, he took out Curtis Blades, who is. He wasn't going to get a shot at Francis, but he's kind of that contender in the wings if any type of opportunity ever opens. And, Derek Lewis took his spot, but there's no heat there, right? And how often has the UFC not gotten the big fight, right? Because they do something, they're unwilling to book something, injuries happen, right? Just look at Tony Ferguson versus Khabib, right? The great fight that never was. You got to kind of just strike when it's available. Jones is absolutely in the right to ask for money. He's going on his Twitter tirades. Unfortunately, he'll never have public opinion on his side, but that doesn't make him wrong, asking for all the money. So I think cooler heads will eventually prevail. I haven't looked at the books, but I've seen a lot of people reference, pandemic or not, this was the most profitable year the UFC has ever had. Yeah,
and Steph, just to turn it, how do you, and we'll break this fight down more if it materializes and we get closer to it. But how do you think Jon Jones would match up against Francis?
That's the fun part, right? And this is why you have to strike when the iron's hot. Jones is my GOAT, right? So I think it's fair that you take it. But I'm going to flip on him. Francis learned how to sprawl.
I agree.
Guys, we remember that? And here's the rough truth about Jon Jones. His wrestling did not look great in those last handful of light heavyweight defenses, right? He wasn't quite able to just enforce his will on Dominic Reyes. He wasn't just able to enforce his will on Thiago Santos. So we're getting a little bit of diminishing returns from Jon in this too.
Yeah, no, I agree. What you got, Bob?
I'm hesitant to immediately pick against a man who just has knocked out 5 people in about, 8 minutes. But we all got to remember also that Jon Jones has made a career of making power punchers look bad. Man's got a chin, right? We all kept waiting for him to, does he have a chin? I know he's fighting a goddamn nuclear warhead in Francis. I get that. Bob. I get that, okay? Stipe has a good chin, too, okay? No, and honestly, no one's ever been faster than him in any of his fights. I don't think either. And he'll be faster than him. I'm not picking Jon Jones right now. Let me be clear about that. But I want to see it. And, this is, we're getting into the Jon Jones stuff right now, right?
Give us some news.
Okay. I can't believe we're having these fucking conversations about who's scared of who. Are you goddamn crazy? No, does anybody I know the Dana White, this guy doesn't want to fight stuff has started to not work as well. Because even my casual MMA fan friends are like, what kind of cheap asshole is Dana White? And I'm like, the cheapest. The cheapest. And
he's throwing his own stars under the bus. It's really idiotic.
The most important thing to Dana White are those 3 letters. UFC. It's the WWF business model they've adopted years ago. The 3 letters matter the most. That is the biggest star in the company. And you are not going to be beholden to anybody over that. And I get Jon Jones has made 500 mistakes. But Frankenstein, this is your monster. This is it. And quite frankly, they should be thankful Jon Jones is not asking for back pay. They should be thankful because they've been getting Jon Jones and all these other stars on a discount. Jon Jones has been on a discount for 10 years. All right. He is asking to make it right for the next fight. And look, they can still underpay all the other fighters. You can have your uber wealthy class of Conor McGregor and Khabib, or he's not fighting, but really I'm talking about Conor McGregor and Jon Jones and, a handful of other people. And they can keep paying everybody else 50 and 50 and 40 and 40. This fight is massive. This is the biggest fight they can make at heavyweight, and I can't think of a bigger one they could put together, to be honest.
Yeah. No, I agree. And I think in the coming weeks, as we see challengers materialize and we get a better picture of what is going to be next, we'll probably have a lot of these conversations, and hopefully the roadmap gets clearer going forward.
I think you might as well just pencil in Jon Jones versus Francis Ngannou for November in Madison Square Garden. That's what I would write down right now.
Anything else would be a mistake, right? And would be a promoter not doing its job correctly, which they don't want to pay the big bucks, but hopefully the money will, figure itself out. We're going to get into the business of UFC in the news, and that will point out that money has been on the company side for a while, so they should invest in a big event. I think they ultimately will. But I did want to get to the co-main event where we had Tyron Woodley trying to salvage his career against Vince. Oh my God, what's his last name, Bob?
Vicente Luque.
Yeah, so I wanted to bring it to you. We did see Tyrone be a lot more aggressive, but ultimately, didn't really get it done.
Yeah, you know what? We went into this fight with Tyron, and we have our usual laundry room discussions with guys get older and stuff. And the one with Tyron was real weird, honestly, because it wasn't like, oh, he's slow now, or oh, he's lost this step, or oh, he's doing this step. It literally looked like this man has got the MMA version of the yips, where he just couldn't go. Like we're just looking at people. And it looked like he fought like a guy who realized that what the impression of him was. For a fight that lasted 3 minutes and 56 seconds, under 4 minutes, they got fight of the night. Let me tell you, that was a real movie trailer almost, where we got everything. We got all the good shit. These guys went at it hard. Luque hasn't had a boring fight in his life. And Tyron Woodley got too aggressive, man. He got too aggressive. He thought he hurt him a couple times. And he was hitting Luque, in fairness. And Luque is able to be hit. But then he got hit. Was it a left? What was the thing put him on the stanky leg? Was it a left hook? What gave him the stanky leg?
I think it was overhand right.
Was it the right?
He countered. Woodley got really aggressive, which is what we all wanted, and he looked great, And then he got a little telegraphy. He threw a big uppercut that Vince could see, and he countered it good. And then once he got hurt, he made the other cardinal sin of just now I'm just going to wing punches even crazier.
Dude, it reminded me of Woodley earlier in his career. Honestly, it reminded me of Woodley back when he fought Nate Marquardt, because we haven't seen Woodley get put out. I don't think. Has he been put out in the UFC? I don't remember, honestly.
Marquardt did. They mentioned
that was in Strikeforce. That was in Strikeforce.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, that
was right. That was the Strikeforce title. Yeah,
so maybe the only time.
So it reminded me of that, where I'm just it would look like he just got too confident in the hands, and he was just, and he's got the Overeem thing, where he is standing there, his eyes are open, and the lights aren't home. No one's home, and the lights are on. Mm-hmm. And he had a stanky leg going for a good 40 seconds. It felt like. And then he got the old Kevin Randleman special, both getting choked out and tapping out. So it went as bad as possible. He got knocked out, choked out, and tapped out all at once. And if that was the last fight on his contract, I don't want to say the UFC was being nice giving him fight of the night and making sure he got an extra $50K on the way out the door. But I was a little surprised when they gave it fight of the night, personally. I didn't watch the whole card, but I was surprised.
Yeah, I was going to say I only saw these 3 fights, but seeing that, I thought it was worth it. That was an exciting 4 minutes. So, Steph, I want to go to you. I think Luque is in a really shitty position. This was a huge win for him, a big, finishing Woodley. But I think the problem that he has is that he fought Thompson Wonderboy, right? And Wonderboy's kind of been in the pack ahead of him. And the problem there is that they don't want to give fucking Wonderboy a title shot. How is Luque going to get it? So where do you think he's going to factor into the rest of the division and what's next for him?
Yeah, I mean, he called out the Diaz brothers because why wouldn't you want to do that? That's not happening. It's not bad, but it's not. The Diaz brothers are going to say, they're going to be like, who? They're like, I have no idea who this guy is. I believe Luque has a loss to Leon Edwards as well, which is another tough thing because that's another guy who I think, coming off the thing is I don't need an immediate rematch with Bilal because it wasn't that compelling, but I don't think he gets a title shot. I think that's his punishment is he needs to take another. So, he really is in a no man's land. If I don't think Masvidal is hard booked, but it seems that's the way we're going, right? For Kamaru.
That's booked. No, that's commercial.
It's booked.
There's a commercial now, yeah.
It's not sexy, but it's like it's Colby or it's rematch town. Like there's just kind of a holding pattern right there between four guys, between Leon Edwards, between Colby Covington, between Wonder Boy, between Luque. So that's the back, six, I guess. What do you got, Bob? Go ahead, Bob?
I got a question. Is Chiesa fighting Covington or not? Because that's what he wanted. Because Chiesa's 6 right now, and Chiesa's
he's right
somebody,
there too.
Yeah.
Well, I think him and Luque would be interesting, but for the love of God, I don't think Luque wants that fight. But that would be interesting.
Yeah, that's a good point, Bob.
It could be a thing, but like I could see, like you said, it doesn't move either of them ahead of anyone else.
It kind of eliminates one of them.
Kind of just keeps them at the spot they're already at, So it's like
one should fight Leon.
I can see why they wouldn't want to.
One should fight Colby. If they're not going to, Colby should fight Chiesa. But if that doesn't happen, I mean, I don't know if Colby's going to fight anybody.
I only want whoever is going to beat Colby to fight Colby.
I want Wonder
Colby
Boy
just fights these guys that he beats. Like
I don't
like that.
I want Wonder Boy to fight Colby.
That'd be good too.
I think Colby would try to be mean, and Wonder Boy would just be smiling, just being a nice guy.
Well,
it definitely
how do you
seems like
be racist to the other Northeast white guy? It's hard.
Yeah, exactly. The guy from South.
But it does seem like, we have like a group of 7 guys, and some of them have already fought in each other. But I think he's definitely solidified himself as a top contender. It's just he's in a shitty position right now, right, where he's not close because there's guys ahead of him that have beaten him. Do we think this is the end of Woodley, Bob? Is this kind of curtains? Is he going to go to Bellator? Is he definitely going to get cut?
What are we saying, like, the end for? End of his UFC career? Yes. I think if his
or
contract...
even just fighting.
If his contract
if he's
is
not in
up,
the UFC?
I don't know if he needs the money. Let me be clear about that. Woodley seems like a very smart guy, and he does a lot of other stuff. He's got like a show on TMZ. He's got some music career. I don't know how well it's going. He's got some acting stuff going here and there. I know he owns that gym, I think, also. That ATT, whatever. I think he would be ripe for Bellator. He started his career with Scott Coker, after all. I came out of this fight more like, not that I wanted to see him fight UFC fighters. But by the way, to be clear, I mean, his 4 losses are Usman, Burns, Covington, Luque. That could just be the 4 best welterweights in the world. Literally, that list.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't really necessarily I don't think they're going to pay him the money to fight middling to lower level talent that he deserves as a star. No, his star power commands. The UFC doesn't pay stars necessarily and keep them around to, they're not going to sign him to a new contract and pay him $150,000 a fight. You know what I mean?
Sure. Yeah.
So Scott Coker will. Scott Coker will pay him that much money. And they're doing tournaments. I mean, I think PFL would be interesting for him.
That's true. I mean, that could be enticing for him.
Him and Rory again. I mean, he lost that fight. Maybe he wants to run that back. That'd be interesting if he viewed that because Rory's in PFL. I think Bellator's kind of made for him, though, just coming in once every 6 months, fighting,
I do wonder if he still has the drive. He at
this
moments,
fight gave me more of it.
He did, yeah. Because mostly he always seemed like the guy, kind of like DC. Like if he wasn't going to fight for the belt or be in that conversation, did he really have the motivation to go? I don't know, because I do think there are greener pastures outside of the UFC where I think he can really excel and make a good buck if that's what he's in it for. But it's a grueling business. But it will be really interesting to see where Woodley goes. Like you, Bob, I kind of hope he's not. The UFC cuts him, and if he wants to continue to fight, he does find one of those other organizations, because it would be nice to see him in lower competition, really be able to utilize his skills. But that being said, those pages have been turned. It's the Sugar O'Malley show now, Steph, and we didn't know how he was going to come back losing to Vieira. But Bob, you want to chime in before we get into the Sugar show? You're muted.
Sorry. Woodley at the desk is actually something I'd like to see more of. He at the desk is better than pretty much everybody they've put at the desk. I don't mean commentary. I mean like the boot, like back at like studio. Him and Dominic were always my 2 favorites. And I think if him leaving the UFC, I hope that he would still have those opportunities. Chael still works for ESPN after all. So
I agree. Like you and Mike said, he's got a clean cut. Get that man on television. He looks good. But we have another man who maybe doesn't look as classically handsome as Tyron Woodley, but he definitely has, some charismatic hair, and he fights fantastic. Again, we're talking about Sean O'Malley, and he came back against Thomas Almeida. A lot of questions we had. His last fight, he lost, more or less due to injury to his foot, which is kind of a cornerstone of his whole, fighting combat style of a lot of movement. But we saw a pretty good performance out of him, huh, Steph?
Yeah, I mean, before I get into my compliments, I'm going to put on my angry old man hat. And we saw an uptick in face tattoos on Sean O'Malley. If you look at the Trailer Park's resident methy badass, that's what Sean O'Malley looked going for. He's a big fan of Post Malone, I take it.
Right.
But yeah, like you said, there were a lot of questions kind of coming off of that. What's his name? Is it Vera?
Yeah, Marlon Vera.
Yeah, Marlon Vera. Is he Cheeto?
Yes, correct.
Anyways, but and I think we were breaking it down. I was pointing it out, right? The kid's incredibly talented. He's super young, kind of came like a bat out of hell. But if there's one thing we've been concerned about, is he's not shown the most durability, right? I likened him to one Dominic Cruz, who has had a lot of injuries on his wheels over the years, and it really just sapped away the best years. So how would this kid react was a thing. And, the commentary, I've given him a lot of credit, or not credit, but discredit in recent weeks. But they were on that same narrative here, and I was along with them. I was just concerned, right? And props to Almeida. I was really harsh on him, I was mean, and this is 4 in a row, but the kid is tough. He really hung in there with a lot of shots. That first round was all O'Malley, right? It was O'Malley styling on him with switches, going high-low, really mixing up the kicks and the punches. He landed a really heavy, left head kick. And I think it might have broken Almeida's nose, because I saw that was smashed in pretty good. And just the fact that Almeida did not go out from that. O'Malley sure wished he did, They rightfully called out O'Malley. He was hunting for the moment. He was hunting for the highlight, right? He wanted to do another walk-off where he just ends it. But, props to Almeida. He still hung in the fight, and he ended up going in a whole other, round and a half. He made it through the second round alive. And you started to wonder, he was hitting back. Almeida himself was getting a lot of good kicks in on O'Malley. And that was also kind of going with this narrative, how is O'Malley taking these kicks, right? I think, Bob, you said maybe his footwork didn't look all there a couple times, or he was eating him a little tough.
I don't know. I might have been just looking for something, but both me and Mike were watching. We're the leg that was wrapped up more. It just there's a couple times where he moved, where I'm that looked weird. But
was one wrapped up more than the other?
The left leg is the one that was fucked up.
He had the ankle tape on both of them.
I thought the left one was the one that was more wrapped up. But I don't know, maybe because both I might have been just looking for something because I didn't see anybody else say anything. But I was just he looked great in a fight tailor-made for him to look great, to be clear. But I did think I'm just waiting for something to fall off on this kid. I'll be honest. That's the way I'm looking at him.
Yeah, it's not a skill thing with him that we're worried about. Like I said, I was kind of in on the narrative too of, is he going to be injury prone? But he moved really well in that fight, right? The thing about the Lis Frank, which is a foot injury, is that it can be really recurring. It's one of those things is once you have it, you're kind of prone to having it again, which is kind of the concerning thing. But in this case, it didn't happen. He used that foot as a weapon. I can't remember the final sequence that he ultimately got him with, but the power is there. The speed is there. And they pointed out too, for this weight class, Sean O'Malley is unreasonably tall and lanky. We've made a lot of criticisms of the long guys in division who don't know how to use their reach well. O'Malley does. He has the jabs. He has the push kicks. He has the side kicks on top of all the spinning flashy shit and the heavy kicks. His striking is really, really high level. And it is kind of amazing that Marlon Vera did kind of whoop that ass a little bit, all things considered. But, coming out of this, I saw someone recommended it, and I would kind of like to see it too, in terms of what's next for him. I'd like to see him fight Dominic Cruz.
Yeah, Bob mentioned that earlier to me. I think him and Dominic match up really well. I think it's an interesting fight. I think there's a lot of guys at bantamweight that would be interesting for Sean. He didn't really have a call out for after this fight. He just wants another exciting fight. I think that's the right thing. I still think he needs to build a little bit. But what do you think, Bob?
Dominic is the one who asked for the fight. And I was doing what I do now during the day on weekdays while I'm working, is listen to the Pat McAfee sports talk show. And Sean O'Malley was on it today, which, by the way, this kid's going to be, if he can keep this going, he's made for, national exposure. They love this kid. He said that he'd love to fight Dominic. He says that'd be big for me. And he says I would love to fight Dominic in July as the co-main event to Conor and Dustin 3. So the kid knows the words that come out of his mouth. Yeah, someone who I told you I would love to see Dominic and Aldo, but shit, the idea of Dominic fighting this young guy and Dominic's footwork, even as an older age, dealing with him would be interesting to watch.
Yeah, I think Sugar Sean O'Malley has a lot of interesting matchups ahead of him. I think he has a bright future. It was good to see him get back on the horse and look good. And, even maybe more impressive than his offensive output was just, like Steph mentioned, is just how good he is defensive and how elusive he is. Because I think at one point they had the stats up for, how many head, body, and leg hits. And it wasn't so much what O'Malley was putting out that interested me. It was what Almeida. It was like 2 to the head, 2 to the body, and 4 to the leg in the second round. It's just like, this guy's hard to hit because he's, like you said, Steph, he's elusive, he's lengthy, and he uses that length really well. So it's going to be interesting to see where Sean O'Malley goes from this. And like Bob said, too, he has fantastic charisma. I think he's, we definitely have a star. They just need to mold him a little bit more. I didn't really catch any more of this card, but Bob, I know there were some highlights here. I don't know if Jamie's nickname is No, but it should be Jamie No Malarkey. But he had a good performance, right? Can you give us any other highlights of this card that you think people should maybe check out?
I mean, Malarkey knocked the motherfucker out in 48 seconds. I mean, he just get him with a jumping left hook, and that dude was done fighting. That was great. And I swear to God, like we spend 2 days, internet. Give me some fucking Biden memes with Malarkey with this guy's name on it.
I gotta say, Mark, this is a nitpick of mine, but it's a thing that I notice. This is why his nickname cannot be No Malarkey, because Buffer is incapable of putting the nickname in the middle. He always puts it at the first. He says it before the name, even when it's supposed to go in the middle, and it makes it awkward sometimes, and it's a thing I hate about Buffer. He would call him No Jamie Malarkey, and so he just can't do it. That's one of Buffer's blind spots.
That's a good point. If it's not going to work, don't go for it. And then Bob,
that was a big one for him, though, man. That was a big win for him. I mean, no one knew who the hell he was. He went out there and knocked the guy out on a pay-per-view that did big business for sure. A lot of people were talking about this.
Unfortunately, I still don't know who he is.
I mean, this was the number. I mean, Ngannou and Stipe was the number one post on Reddit for a day and a half. It felt like. So yeah, that was a big fight card for him to show people what's what.
Manfield, he had a Von Flu choke, right? I think that's the only other thing I heard from
Yeah, I thought I heard the announcer called a Von Prue. I thought Buffer called it a Von Prue choke for a moment.
All right,
and I got real excited. I'm like, we're gonna get OSP some love. He might have more than anybody else now. But he got him with a Von Flu choke. Manfield is like someone to keep an eye out for, but I don't think we're at a point yet to be like, I mean, getting a win like this is, impressive. Don't get me wrong. But I know there was a weight miss, and I honestly don't know if it was him or not.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, so,
I you know what? I apologize, Manifield. You didn't miss weight. The other guy did. But, yeah, that was a big win for him. And see where it goes from here.
Yeah. So that kind of closes the book on UFC 260. Not only do we have a big title fight and a big card, there's a lot of news breaking since the last podcast. And I'm going to start out with something that's probably not as big. We're going to get into the Endeavor stuff because I think that's more big business. That's big picture stuff. But something that really just kind of shocked me, which is kind of, few and far between in MMA, was Miesha Tate announcing her comeback. It has been 5 years since Miesha Tate hung it up after she lost to Raquel Pennington kind of unceremoniously. And since then, keeping tabs on her, I believe, I don't know if she's still working for ONE FC. She became like their VP of, communications or what have you. She got pregnant. She's had a kid. It definitely seemed like her fighting days were past her. So to hear her come back was kind of surprising. And from what I heard, and you guys please expand if you heard more, is she just got the itch. She wanted to come back. I don't think the picture got any clearer. Like, Amanda Nunes is still at the head of the game. That's who she lost the belt to. I don't think she's going to. I don't see anything in her that's going to be able to come back and beat Amanda Nunes. So it does seem like she's just purely in it for the competition of it all. But what do you guys think? Did this kind of throw you guys as much as it did me? No, because this is MMA. And while it's been a few years, I think having a kid makes a difference. And sometimes where you want your, I don't know how old her daughter is now, but I think there's like a couple of things here where someone will want to prove that they can come back from that athletically. The toll that having a child can have on your body is one. And two, a lot of people
want their child to see them perform, maybe. And
Sure.
why mommy is famous, you know. This isn't like the same thing at all, but I remember like in wrestling when Goldberg came back, Goldberg said he wants his kid to see him wrestle because his kid never saw his first run. Some shit like that, where maybe like Misha wanted like, you know, to show her daughter, you know, a bunch of people cheering for her, though theoretically. Well, like we have crowds now, I guess. So not theoretically, but I think that
fair.
might be some of it. Also, she left a lot of money on the table, man.
She did. She was still a draw. I mean, it's been a while now, but it's hard to remember. She was the main event of UFC 200. You know, that was a huge card that obviously had some. The plan wasn't Miesha Tate, Amanda Nunes for the main event, but that's how it worked out. You know, she was a former champion. She was very popular. She commanded a hefty paycheck. It'll be interesting to see how she comes back. Just to round it out, Steph, did that surprise you at all? Do you have any thoughts on Miesha Tate coming back? Is there anyone you'd want to see her fight against?
Yeah, it's simultaneously yes and no. Bob he made the perfect parable of pro wrestling, right? Something our friend Dave Batista said is like there needs to be two types of retirement. There's like retired, which is what I am, and other retirement where people are going to come back. But you know, anytime your primary earnings stop before the age of 50, there's still a lot of life to live, right? And
True.
Are you really that well set? And then, you know, there could also just be the competitive aspect too, because if you've attained the pinnacle of your profession, you know, part of you itches, can you still do it? So there could be a number of reasons, but like, so I'm not shocked that someone who was, you know, big parentheses, like, or big quotation marks, retired is unretired. But to hear it was Miesha Tate and that she's coming back to the UFC because, like you said, I thought she was working for some other organization, even if it was just like in title as an ambassador role. It's tough to say what I want to see her do because it's like, are you coming back to make a real run? Are you coming back to have a one-off to test the waters? So it's like, you know, is it a showcase fight? Or are you trying to say you have one left run in you? You know, because that kind of changes what the matchmaking is too.
I like that her opponent is someone who's having her own retirement fight. That fight. Marion
Who is her
Renaud.
opponent?
Marion Renaud.
Oh, that's right.
So-
That's right. Yeah. And
Marion got in a little bit at a later age too. I think
I think she's past 40 now, isn't she? Or she was up there.
I think she's close to it, but she said this is it for her, which is an interesting parable right there.
Yeah, that's true. So time will tell. I want to get out of the way. That one did kind of surprise me. I'm a big Miesha Tate fan. After 5 years, I just did not expect her to come back. But you know, let's get the books out. Let's get the accounting spreadsheets out, Bob, because there's business been afoot. Endeavor, I guess, came out and said that the UFC was responsible for 80% of all of its profits for 2020, which kind of makes sense. You know, a lot of things talent-wise, you know, movies and stuff have been kind of slowed down in 2020. The UFC definitely got back on that ball. So what else did we learn about that?
You know, by the way, I feel if anybody wants to go back and listen to this podcast from a year ago, where I think we all said it, we all pointed out like, hey, they're owned by a talent agency that can't do anything else. Maybe that's why they're so desperate to end up at the fucking Tachi Palace and run shows right now.
Very true.
Maybe. Basically, Endeavor wanted to IPO, and I'm not an expert in describing why these things do or don't work, but they tried the IPO a few months, was this 5-6 months ago? No, I'm sorry, September 2019. God, I have no concept of time anymore. And it did not go well. A lot of that is because they had a lot of risky debt, I guess, or risky loans out there. But because the UFC is viewed as such a good investment, they want to IPO. They want to approach another IPO, this time while having complete ownership of the UFC or close to it. And 40% of the UFC is currently owned by, I think, Silver Lake Capital and another, group of investment firms or whatever at that
And what
point.
about the Saudis? Didn't they have like 10% or something?
I think they dumped it when it was sold ultimately at the beginning there. So, I think Lorenzo owns like 2% or some shit too at the back end here, probably.
He's still getting a little bit on the back end, that Lorenzo.
This sport's big business, man. And its value is probably increased even, at this time. I still think ESPN's kicking itself for not buying the whole sport when they could have.
Yeah.
They could have bought the UFC. When they're paying UFC $400 million a year and they're paying them for whatever X number of years and they sold for $4 billion, you start doing some quick math.
Yeah,
You're like, oh,
almost own them already. So
yeah. I think when that's why when like you got people like Jon Jones or any fighter taking a stance for money, The reason this sport was able to make them, the reason the UFC makes the money it does partly is because they keep the fighter wages at between 16 and 20% annually. And look, I don't just blame, I mean, this isn't just like UFC evil, because this is America, and, you know, you got to negotiate your rates and salaries, and if the UFC is not running a charity, and quite frankly,
Capitalism,
yeah,
baby.
like if you agree to fight, if every UFC fighter agreed to fight for, you know, $14 an hour, they would pay him $14 an hour. Like, it's the way it is. Endeavor's trying to become a publicly traded company here, man. That's what their goal is here. It'd be fun to see the books open up entirely, though. Let me tell you that. I mean, everything we know is from the lawsuit. It truly opening up would be really fun to see.
Right. I think that's an interesting point, Bob. We'll bring it to the next thing. Reebok, right? I guess their contract's just about done, and we got
that was it.
Yeah, and we got some information, right, about, you know, I guess, and this is, I'm basing it completely off of what you told us, right? Like they promised the fighters that they would make $70 million over the course. Was it 5 years? This contract was.
I think it was 7 fucking years, babe. I don't know.
7 years.
It was pretty much $70 million was supposed to be the value of the Reebok deal, where the UFC said they were taking none of the money. And this isn't me accusing the UFC of taking the money. But based on the guidelines of what people got paid, $40 million went to the fighters. Granted, I'm assuming there is some overhead cost in administering this program. And I don't know, building the stupid fucking Reebok lockers you see in every backstage shot and stuff.
Those ain't free.
I don't think that all that cost $30 million necessarily.
You don't think that $30 million locker is back there?
This is the thing. I'm wondering if the UFC's paying for cost of goods at this point too. Like, are they paying for the raw materials? Again, I'm not accusing them of pocketing the money, but the deal looks even worse now because the math wasn't good before. That was, you know, they were getting before that, you know.
Yeah, I've always been really upset ever since that happened because, like, okay, you took
we
the
weren't even
sponsors.
talking about money though. We weren't even talking about money.
It was just like, yeah, you took the sponsors off their shorts, so the fighters don't get any money, but you kept them on your fucking octagon. It just seems gross. You know, I want to leave it at that because let's get into some silly business now because we got some fucking silly business with this Thriller promotion and their Ben Askren, Logan Paul. It's Jake Paul, right? We already,
Okay.
we one of the Pauls. We already knew that this was kind of a shit show, and we knew it was going to be just kind of like a weird event. But when they announced their commentating team is the guy from SNL, some Victoria's Secret model, and like, was there a fighter or two announced in there?
I think Al Bernstein's still on there, and stuff. Poor Al Bernstein is on there.
And then they announced what Bieber's gonna have a performance.
Dude,
Snoop Dogg.
It looks so fucking weird.
It seems almost more concert now than a fighting event. But I think something quasi-relevant. Frank Mir's opponent was supposed to be, was it Antonio Carver?
Antonio Tarver, yeah.
Tarver, yeah. And I guess he fell out, right? So they did find another replacement opponent for Frank Mir. But I mean, this show, the closer we get to it, and I think it's like mid-April, right? So we're really getting close to this thing
17th.
happening. 17th, yeah. So we're really, you know, as it becomes closer to fruition and we hear about the lineup, I'm just like, whoa.
Did you watch the thing Ben Askren put out, though? That was a shot-for-shot remake of the Rocky IV training montage.
Oh, no, you
was incredible.
I didn't see that. I did see the press. Well, so before I saw the press conference they had, I saw the individual interview from, God, I can't remember which Paul it is, Jake Paul. And he was talking about like, oh man, I clowned on, Ben Askren. He's so corny and stupid. And I was like, okay. And I guess there was like some scuffle. So I was like, okay, I got to see this shit. So I'm watching it and like, I was like, oh, I get it. This kid's delusional. He obviously lives in his own universe where like, he doesn't understand that like, he's trying to rag on Ben Askren because like Ben Askren made some joke and he's like, I guess Ben says something like, oh, what is your like entourage? Do you pay them or do you like give them like sexual favors? It didn't get a laugh because they're just reporters, you know, whatever. And then I think Paul says something like, oh no, I gave him over the pants handies. And no one laughed at that because it was just weird. And then he's like, Ben, say your joke again. Ben, say your joke. It's like, it didn't get a laugh at first. And it's just like, you're not saying anything funny. You're just being fucking retarded. And it's just, I like seeing the gears in his head where it's just like, oh, he's so delusional. Like he thinks he's owning Ben Askren and like the mental warfare here. And then when you see Ben's responses, is an extremely mature man who knows exactly what he's getting into. This is a freak show where he's making good money fighting, you know, a YouTube star. And then I think ultimately, and then, you know, hearing Jake Paul's analysis of like the scuffle at the end, where basically after their face off, Ben was walking away and just put his hand in his face and kind of pushed him away. And then to hear Jake Paul recalls it, he blasted him to the liver with a good shot he could have knocked him out with. And then he was really surprised when he shoved Ben, that Ben, he wasn't as sturdy and as grounded as he thought a wrestler would be. And then you watch it, it's like he pushed Ben from behind. No one is like not getting forward momentum when you push them in the way they're walking. So it's just like
Mark,
see the revisionist history.
I think this kid is doing exactly. You're giving him the exact reaction this kid go. I don't want to give the kid too much credit, but I'm about to.
Sure.
This kid's entire thing is like convince people he's a piece of shit, which is not difficult. And let's all watch the piece of shit get beat up by a real athlete.
I think that's how we see it. Clearly, I think that's how
how everybody sees it, man.
I don't think that's how he sees it. I think he sees it as I'm the fucking man. I trashed all over that dude with my great rhetoric, and then I shoved him like a piece of shit. You
don't think he's playing some? I mean, look, I think he is a piece of shit, but I think
your argument's that he's self-aware.
Am I giving him too? I'm giving him too much credit, and you might be giving him not enough credit. There might be somewhere in the middle.
There's a middle ground. Steph, where are you then? Are you the mama bear?
The middle ground is the brothers are pieces of shit. Yes. They've written delusional books where they just recount on girls they sexually molested in high school and growing up. And they just talk about that nonstop. And one of them talks about the smoothie he's drinking while he's writing the book. In the book that's clearly he had nothing to talk about as they told him to start penning a book. They're not the brightest guys. They're not idiots. They know their characters, but they also believe they're characters that they are. It's not totally an act. It is they do believe it because they're the delusional YouTube generation, right? They believe that they're funny guys because a bunch of children are giving them tons of money. But at the same time, as I keep telling you, this is the future of boxing, right? This is boxing now. I didn't see all the more recent stuff, but I was gonna go further back because the one thing I did see was someone Mookie over on Bloody Elbow posted. He shared Ben Askren's post, and it was Ben Askren releases his training footage, and it will take your breath away. And it is the most mediocre ho-hum striking. It is like if you put me in a boxing gym and says, Stefan, record about 20 seconds of shadow boxing and mitt footage. That's the quality of boxing we're seeing. And I'm like, all right, it does take my breath away, but not for the reason you think it does. But I liked his analysis. He's like, I expect this kid to look good. He probably's got power. He probably has speed for a couple rounds, but he's like, I'm tough as fuck, and I don't ever get tired. He's like, I'm going to make it to the 7th round with this kid, and he's going to be exhausted, because that is true. When you watch his fight with KS1 black dude, other YouTuber that he fought,
that was his brother, right? Didn't his brother fight KS?
They're the same guy.
He fought another YouTuber.
Look,
that wasn't.
We gotta adopt.
You don't understand. It's the Paul brothers are Christian Bale's character in The Prestige, where they are twins living the life of one man. That
makes it easier for me.
Look, you gotta adopt what they do on Ben Folks' podcast, where they just give him a new name with each one. Jim Paul, Ebenezer Paul,
I like that too.
Austin Paul. Just give him a new first name. We'll move on with our day, okay?
Yeah.
By the way, you're talking about this being the future of boxing, Mark. Right. I posited the other news that came out of this weird press conference. Mm-hmm. De La Hoya's coming back.
Yeah,
and specifically, they want to book De La Hoya against an MMA fighter. And I told you the answer, and you know it's gonna fucking happen because Anderson Silva's right for this bullshit. You know Anderson Silva's right for this whole fucking gimmick.
He's wanted to get in there.
Weight class?
Who gives a shit?
Yeah.
Is it just open weight boxing? I mean, that's fine. Like I said,
De La Hoya looks pretty thick.
He might have put on some pounds, but I mean, Steph, you're right. He's definitely, which has been kind of the opposite. I mean, I think Steph, sadly to a degree, is correct. Like, I think there's a particular reason why so many of these boxers or celebrity boxers, when we talk about the Pauls, want to fight MMA fighters. And I think they're picking the right MMA fighters, right? When you talk about Ben Askren, you talk about who's the other, Dylan Danos. Like, these are guys that, like, they fight MMA, but they're grapplers. You know, they're really not known for their striking. They haven't really called out many strikers. And when you get into the professional boxers that are retired, like De La Hoya, it's like, okay, I kind of expect them to want to fight a striker, but not like a legit contender in the sport of boxing, but someone who's potentially washed up in MMA and is used to using knees and kicks. So it doesn't surprise me, but it is kind of sad that the state of affairs of boxing is such that I think I think for the Pauls, it makes sense because I do think this earlier generation is just a lot more familiar with MMA fighters than they are with boxers. Because I know I am, and I think a lot of people are. Boxing just doesn't have that kind of, I don't know, it's just not in the mainstream as much. And they know they'll get more eyes fighting a Conor McGregor than they will with Canelo, right? And Canelo's going to be a lot harder for them. But it's just, I don't know, it's really interesting. I don't hate it, and I know there's a lot of like boxing versus MMA and people are getting, all up in arms about that. I don't know who's getting upset about that. Like who's really going to bank like these two sports with two guys that like one's retired and like basically pushing 40, had hip surgery, and one's a YouTube guy. Like Jake Paul does not represent boxing, okay? And Ben Askren doesn't represent the whole sport of MMA. Okay. These are two guys that represent themselves.
Look,
you don't know what's going on.
Ben Askren's out here defending MMA, and Jorge Masvidal is lined up behind a YouTube twat. All right?
I need to make a point again to tie this back to the UFC ultimately. I'm going to have to talk to you guys into splitting this. You know why? Because the last time they did this, that is the best stream protection I have ever seen. This stream was the hardest stream if you wanted to watch it on the internet. They knew their audience. They knew kids don't like paying for things. Remember when Dana White they got the one guy that's pirating everything? Like, Dana White wants Jake Paul's or Logan Paul, whichever. He wants the Paul brothers stream team because they got that stuff down on lock. Like, that stream was incredibly, like the security on it, like, it's a very present thing because we're in the streaming world, right? During the pandemic, especially, streaming has become an all-time high, and the production on it was really locked down. So, yeah, fellas, when Mike gets here, you talk about the zone and all these things. No, we're talking about splitting the Paul Askren pay-per-view.
I think they're going to take a bath on this one. I could be wrong, but like they're spending a lot of money. They paid Teofimo Lopez so much money. They paid him like twice what any other fucking promoter was willing to offer him. And I don't know if Ben Askren.
Let's help him out, guys.
Is Ben Askren and I mean, last one had Mike Tyson at the top of the bill.
That's true.
Then again, this has fucking what was the list of people performing? Like Bieber's on this thing. Highlight for me was the Mount Westmore supergroup of Snoop Dogg, Ice Cube, Too Short, and E40. I'm just happy Too Short's getting a check, man. Like, that's what I'm here for.
Earlier this week, when Ben Askren was kind of just like laughing and like, this is the biggest payday of my career, did you kind of think he's just going to pull a Bob Sapp? Like, is a part of you think he's just like, I'm just taking this check? Guys,
well, Bob Sapp said that he'll only try for however much you're paying him. So I expect Ben, if he goes with that same model, to try really hard because usually, Bob Sapp doesn't get paid much. He'll just take a dive.
Dude, that video he made, that Rocky montage, was not cheap. All right? By the way, why couldn't we get the version of Ben, like this version of Ben Askren in MMA, who's doing fucking Rocky montage videos, like to sell a fight? God damn it, Ben! Like we could have.
I like.
You could have been in the UFC years ago.
Bob, the version of Ben Askren we got was him having the same seats as us, yelling at Johnny Hendricks from the distance because he can't afford them good seats.
That was the best part of that was we were watching Ben Askren tweet, and then I'm on my phone looking at him calling out Johnny Hendricks fat. And then like someone else tweeted, Ben Askren went to borrow someone's phone charger, and we saw him get up walking. Like, that was a highlight right there. Yeah, this is going to be a zoo.
Yeah, and it's coming up soon, so that's going to be exciting. It's going to be a shit show. The musical guest thing doesn't really do anything for me. It's just like, who wants to, like, I'll watch Coachella performances because I can't be at Coachella, but it's like, I don't want to pay to watch Bieber perform. It's like, it's not for me.
They have a crowd for this, right? They had a crowd last time?
I have to assume they do. Because why the fuck have all these musical performances if there's not actually people in the audience? But we're getting close to it. I think in the weeks coming, maybe, you guys want to take picks on this? Maybe we should.
Yeah, Ben Askren.
I mean, hypothetically, when we're the week before and we tie it into
write it down, official, put it in stone.
I kind of have Ben too.
Right, Bobby, dude, I'm gonna and body hair against my head hair,
dude.
Askren
First of all, I don't think any of the fucking waxing places are open yet. Okay. Second of all, I'm just gonna feel bad if Ben does. Look, we saw Ben die against Jorge Masvidal. I don't need that to happen again. He's already faced one public shaming. This is somehow worse.
When Paul by uppercut finishes Ben Askren, he's gonna be on the front page of. Read it again,
Nope.
Bobby.
No. I'm just saying they better put it in the contract that Ben Askren is not allowed to double like this motherfucker because he's gonna throw him in the air like a pizza pie. Okay,
Maybe that should be an over/under bet. Does he go for a takedown?
What if Ben Askren gets stunned, and when like a stunned fighter takes down the ref because they're super out of it because the instincts kick in?
Like a pizza pie, Stephon. He's gonna throw this kid in the air and start spinning him.
That would be worth the pay-per-view bucks. Unfortunately, this coming week don't have any UFC. We do have Bellator is making their first event on where is it on? Is it on USA, Bob?
It's on Showtime, baby.
Showtime, that's right. Showtime. I was thinking, I don't know why. Oh no, it's ONE FC is going to be on wherever AEW's on. That's what I was getting confused with. But yeah, Bellator's coming back. There's not a lot to that card. I think the Good Pitbull is fighting Emmanuel Sanchez.
It's not the Good Pitbull.
It's not
the
the
other
worst.
Pitbull.
Oh boy, never
It's not
mind,
even though
folks.
he's not a bad Pitbull. There's a better
I
Pitbull.
mean, of all the Pitbulls, he's not the
Well,
worst.
the other one has two fucking belts. Like,
Exactly.
what else?
But Bellator is kicking off their Showtime fights. I think they're kind of doing like one every week after that or something. The train kind of gets rolling for them, and they have that light heavyweight tournament, which we'll get into more.
It's
when we get
Fridays.
closer
Did
to
they say
it.
Fridays? Or are they still doing Fridays?
I'm not sure.
I'm a big fan of them not doing. I'm a big fan of them not doing Saturdays.
Not doubling up.
Yeah.
That makes sense. But for this week, we don't have any picks, so we're gonna just dive right into stuff we like. So, Bob, why don't you go ahead and start us off? What do you got this week?
Oh shit! I didn't even think about that. Okay.
Do you need a second? Do you want Steph to go?
I do. I don't know what I did this week.
Steph, you gotta have some anime about someone turning into a slime queued up, right?
Oh, I do got anime, but it's not that anything new. We actually just hit season finale of the current run. All the animes were hitting their thing. This is the one though where I feel hoodwinked. I feel bamboozled because we went into it. Me and Mike talked about it. This is supposedly the final season of Attack on Titan. They keep calling it the final season, but here's the actual truth: it is the first half of the final season.
That's how they get you.
Because when the second half is, they say they where they would normally show the preview for the next episode. They said coming in the winter of 2022. We have to wait over a year.
A little bit of a wait. Is this going to be Attack on Titan Z?
So they left us at a hell of a cliffhanger. The most popular character on the show, is he dead? A big collision of two of the other pivotal characters. It's really good. Meanwhile, Mike, I made Mike a soft boy. Mike is just one of these soy boys like me now, watching all these rom-com animes. He's in on it. But Quintessential Quintuplets hit their season finale. Really loved it. Couldn't get enough. And we got the third season coming, so that'll be the final season itself. Fortunately, they will not do us dirty and split it into two, but we'll probably have to wait a year on that. I couldn't get enough of it, so my venture this week was I created a Japanese Nintendo account. What does that do? It allows you to log into the Japanese Nintendo eStore. And I bought a Quintessential Quintuplets Nintendo Switch game, which is only in Japanese. So I was telling Mark, what I am doing is to literally play this game. I hover my cell phone with the Google Translate via the camera, and it just converts all the kanji and hiragana into English for me. And I need to invest in some type of phone holder that hovers over my Switch for me, because two-handing it is a little tough. But I was telling Mark,
that app is important, bro. That's how I did laundry in Austria, was with that app. I needed to pull it up to the machine.
Look, I will say, I always made fun of the idea of Google Glass, computer glasses. I was like, that's stupid. Why would I ever want that in my thing? And I'm like, oh, it translates foreign languages for you in live real time. I'm like, okay, that makes sense. That's actually a very valuable feature, especially if you're into traveling. And, we're talking about vaccinations. And I don't know about your family and all them, but like all my family ever talks about is where we want to go whenever we can again. The first trips we do. My niece, she's been studying Japanese for several months. So we're thinking for her birthday next March, which is a year from now, we'll go as a family to Japan, reward her. It's the only thing she's ever really wanted, is to get to see Tokyo and all that. And all of us, we've been to Tokyo, and it meant a lot to us going there and everything, because that's always been one of our destinations. But so I like Google Translate and I like anime. And the two of those things are merging together. It's a management simulator game. I'm sure Mike would have had questions for me about it. He was asking me a little bit about it, but I'll fill him in on that next time we get to chat.
I mostly like how they're quintuplets and yet
Yes.
you still can't get enough. How many copies do they have to make for you, Stefan, until you're satisfied with as many of these?
It is
charming
just
young
the
ladies?
best show. It's just the best. It is. That is all my reality TV, all those seasons of Bachelor that people love. That's all those feelings I have for this quintuplet show.
Nice. Bob, you got a couple minutes. Is that enough time, or do you want me to go?
I'm good.
Okay, what do you
Mine are pretty simple. I didn't watch a ton of stuff. A lot of my viewing on the weekend time was taken by me laying in bed. By the way, those of you getting vaccinated, you should go to Staples. They will laminate your card for free.
Oh, nice.
Obviously, do that after the second one.
Well, yeah, because they have to still write on it, right?
Exactly. I told you this. I've mentioned it a bunch of times, but the New Day podcast was in rare form these last 2 weeks, especially this week. They're doing the greatest toy ever bracket.
That's a fun
and at
one.
this point, the second episode, the second week is them doing the second half of the bracket of the first round.
Mm-hmm.
But at this point, they've just devolved into being angry at their producer, Dan Reichert, for having shitty toys in there and not having the right toys.
Sorry, what is the bracket? What is the category?
Best toys ever. Just toys, not video games.
That's very
Toys.
broad. That's a very, very broad.
Well, that's the thing. Well, like, they're unhappy that, like, Transformers is in there, and he just said, he's just like, all right, next up, a tire with a stick.
What's it on 1920s or something?
Yeah, and then, like, they're like, what? Like, Austin Creed is just like, Dad, you got, and there's a, they curse on the podcast, but not really, they beep it. You just hear, like, Kofi Kingston just make a long expletive at the end, like, beep, Dan, why?
That is good.
Yeah, it's, you guys know, we did a bunch of brackets. We probably got the idea first from these guys. It's a fun way to do a podcast, and you got 3 charismatic dudes on there. So, if you're wondering who the New Day are, those GIFs you saw of people putting a Photoshop of Ngannou getting lifted in the air by Usman and Adesanya, that was the New Day they put their faces on, picking up Ngannou. The other one was, I was able to listen to How Did This Get Made for the first time in a while, and I say able to listen to because that's a hard podcast to listen to if you haven't seen the movie.
Right.
And they did one about the Justice League Snyder Cut, but it wasn't like a usual version of their podcast, and most of their podcast is just making fun of a movie. This was like, they got into a serious discussion about why this worked versus why the Whedon cut didn't work, and the things they really liked, some of the things they didn't like, and, you know, I thought Stefan would find it interesting, though I imagine at this point Stefan's probably listened about and watched 17 different things about the Snyder Cut. So he might be all Snyder cut it out.
I also like the Snyder Cut the least of us, I think.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I know you also aren't the biggest Jason Mantzoukas fan either, but he's he's not really roughing it up too much in this. But I'm a big fan of that podcast, and they did a really good job. By the way, there's a black and white version of the Snyder Cut now. Like, is that a thing? You see that? Like,
sure.
It's on HBO. It's just
Does
great.
it also come in a resolution to fit on like my Nokia cell phone? Like what other wonky choices would he like to make?
I did like that Mantzoukas is like, this movie started, I saw it was at 4:03, and I said, fuck you, Snyder. Just fuck you. And I was like, okay, we're on the same page.
I will say, when I've heard Mantzoukas on podcasts, I like him infinitely more than every character he plays. I hate the character he plays, but when he's actually his normal self, I think he's a much more digestible person, I guess.
Exactly. And then, not to make this sad, because I'm going to talk about it in happy terms, but we lost Jessica Walter this week, who played Lucille Bluth and Mallory Archer.
You know who else she played? Because I was saying, like, oh, she's a Hall of Fame mom. I didn't know she was the mom on Dinosaurs. You remember Dinosaurs from back in the day?
Not know
Didn't
that.
know that.
Like Dinosaurs from back in the day.
I mean, like, her playing...
I'm the baby, gotta love me. I remember that show.
Her playing Mallory Archer was also just her playing Lucille Bluth in a different show, really. Just one of the greatest TV moms ever, apparently, for multiple shows. And I had a lot of fun sending gifts to people that day. And it wasn't, she's 80 years old. You want people, of course, not to pass away, but, you try to think about the happy memory she's left us with. And, like, go play, here's some money, was it a go watch a Star Wars or whatever? Was it? That's that one.
I mean, how much could a banana cost? $10?
Yeah. Just there's so many classic lines from her on that show specifically. And that show literally has perfect casting. So her, She nailed it in that, and you know, it was sad to see her go, but just reminded me of like I should watch Arrested Development again.
Yeah, that was my family text thread where a bunch of gifs and quotes. Like the main family in Arrested Development, I am one of 4 siblings. So, you know, having a mom say, hey, you're my 3rd least favorite child and things like that, all those comments and the math, you know.
Mark, should we decide which one of them Stefan is? Which of the Bluth kids? Because I think, I mean, any of the answers is offensive if it isn't Michael, right? Which one do you think Stefan is?
There's one good one. Right?
I mean, it's which one of my personality-wise, but the one everyone quotes me as is obviously my siblings would call me Buster because I'm the baby and the baby. I'm the baby and the favorite, and I can say that proudly because I'm pretty sure my siblings aren't listening to this podcast, but I'm the favorite.
But yeah, I mean, if you've never seen Arrested Development, of course, you probably should. At this point, why haven't you? But you probably have you've probably seen her, you probably heard her or seen her between Archer and Arrested Development. 2 massively successful TV shows. So, rest in peace to Miss Jessica Walter.
Yeah, nice. So I'll round us out. I got a couple things backlog from weeks prior. I apparently have been on a big Canadian sitcom kick because after finishing Schitt's Creek, shortly after that, I randomly, and I had seen advertisements for it before and completely had written it off. But you know, me and Christine actually gave Letterkenny a solid try. It is on Hulu, and I can easily recommend it. It is a fantastic show. And like I said, when I first saw advertisements for it, I thought it was masculine toxicity, the show, because the advertisements were just like a bunch of dudes fighting each other and some hot broads onto the side. And I was just like, what is this? But basically it's about some, self-proclaimed hicks in Ontario. And the writing is just top notch. If you like wordplay and puns, the show's got it in doubles. Really fun characters. And maybe it's a Canadian thing. I don't really know. Short seasons. I think each season was 7 episodes long. It's still ongoing. They eventually got picked up by Hulu. I think it's like a Hulu exclusive now. And honestly, that's my biggest gripe about the show is it's on Hulu and they have fucking commercial breaks. And that just makes every, 22 a minute episode 30 minutes. And you see the same ads over and over again, but the show's
isn't that on you, Mark, at that point, though? Couldn't you solve the commercial problem?
I guess if I wanted to pay even more,
$3
but the thing that really unsold me on that is that I heard that even if you pay the premium, you can still get some ads. It's like, I'm not going to pay more money and then still have to sit through some fucking ads. Like, that is just bullshit.
I've heard really good things about that show, though, honestly.
It is really good.
You sent me a clip, but I'd heard it was good stuff.
Yeah, and that's kind of, I had been hearing good things, and, we kind of needed a new sitcom, so I was like, you know what, let's give this a shot. And it won us over within the first episode. It's an easy recommendation. Another show that, Steph actually recommended a while ago, I gave a shot to, and it didn't, the first couple episodes didn't really click with me, but I went back to it, and I ended up just loving it, is Kim's Convenience. This is on Netflix. This is another Canadian show about a Korean family and their convenience store and their family and their kind of, misadventures they get into. I think it's one of those sitcoms that I think is really easily watched. It's not super, I don't think the storylines are going for a lot early on. I think, as you get more used to the characters and some of their story arcs, I do think it does carry a heavier note. And I think in these later seasons, it kind of does that pretty well. But after coming back to it, I really do like this show. I really love this show, and I'm anticipating the next 5th season coming on Netflix soon. I really appreciated that show. Another show that actually just started that I really liked, and the first review I saw for it wasn't super amazing, is Invincible on Amazon. So Invincible is actually an animated series based off of Robert Kirkman's first comic with Image, which is basically his superhero comic. And I remember hearing about it for a long time, and when I finally gave the comic a shot, it was after I have been pretty involved with the MCU, so I was very tuned up for some superhero-like antics. And the series and this animated series, I mean, it takes a lot from Marvel and DC. They switch it up and put their own spin on it, but a lot of the characters are like, okay, that's obviously their Wonder Woman. This guy's like Superman. This guy's like Batman. It does a really good job. And I think one of the things I told Steph earlier when I was telling about the show, I think the voice acting in it is pretty solid and it does the characters justice. They obviously went for a lot of big name actors, and 2 of the actors, one we've already mentioned Jason Mantzoukas, and another one that plays Omni-Man, one of the main characters, is J.K. Simmons. those two guys' voice are just so unique. You know, when they do their first line, it's like, oh, Christine was like, who's that guy? I was like, oh, that's J.K. Simmons. Like, oh, that's right. Because like, it's hard to really have these characters have their own identity when you, you know, are able to ID who's doing the voice so quickly. I still think they do a great job. I think they give a good voice to those characters. They're just so iconic. They kind of stick out immediately. I think Stephen Yu, who does Invincible, actually does a really good job. I couldn't, and it's probably because I haven't seen him in as much stuff, but I couldn't tell it was him at all. You know, he just seemed like a white suburban kid as far as I could tell. I think the show is really fun. I think what Amazon has kind of gone for, and this is what the comics did too, is they're definitely playing up the superhero, but more grounded, realistic, and gritty. I would say more violent in this tenure. Like, I heard early on, like, oh, this show's pretty violent, which the comic is too. And it's not until like the end of the first episode they really ratchet that shit up, and it kind of shocks you a little bit just how gory and violent the show is. But it's really good. I was, you know, IGN gave the first episodes a 6, so I had low expectations. But after watching it, I was like, I really like this show. I'm looking forward to it each week. So they're doing the Boys thing where they put 3 episodes out at once, and they're going to do weekly installments from there. You have a question?
Yeah, what I would ask you, Mark, is because the thing is, I don't want to go in on too much spoilers. I never read Invincible as much as, you know, as familiar as I am with Kirkman from Walking Dead and all that stuff. But the one name that kind of seems to obviously come up as a comparison is The Boys.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
so I was just curious how you would compare the two in terms of content and subject matter.
It definitely, I mean, I think you can compare it to The Boys, where it's not like as, I mean, like adult themed with them like getting into sexual stuff. It's really just the gore. And what's weird is I heard it was very gory watching it. And like the first scene, they have a big fight scene, and it's not that gory. There's like some blood and stuff, but it's really, they ranch up the gore when you really need it. Something major happens that is extremely unexpected. And I think they really punctuate that scene by having like an extremely gory, violent scene to really punctuate like, oh, you didn't expect this to happen, and you didn't expect this show to be as graphic as it is. Other than that, like, I think it's funny, it's clever, which is, these are all things when I read the comic, like, I really got into the comics because they were really well written. And even though they're treading on well-traveled territory, like you know, a lot of the stuff is, like I said, just ripped from Marvel and DC, but they put their own spin on it that kind of makes it unique in its own. And then, you know, there's some twists and turns. I thought they would get to the big twist earlier than they have so far. I mean, they basically, in the first episode, you kind of get allude to it, but the comic was really interesting, and I think the show does the comic a lot of justice. So I'm super pleased with what I saw. And I would definitely recommend. It's another, you know, all these shows I recommended today, these are easy recommends. You know, a lot of times when we do stuff we like, I might preface it like, I really like this. I don't know if you will. If you like X, Y, and Z, maybe this will be up your alley. All of these things are just easy sells. Yeah, so I really enjoyed it. You know, now Friday's an easy superhero day for me because we got Falcon and Winter Soldier. I thought episode 2 was great. We're going to get into that when we kind of wrap up the whole series. And then Invincible's really been rounding out that whole kind of superhero Friday for me. But that's all I got. So I think that
when you said animated series, I thought I'm like, oh, Mark's going to talk about The Great North. Mark started watching The Great North.
I have not. I've seen the people.
I watched 5 episodes.
Is it any good?
I like it. It kind of is. It doesn't. I'm directly comparing it to Bob's Burgers because it's the Bob's Burgers people.
Yeah,
it's also the same people. It didn't get me the way Bob's Burgers did immediately.
Right.
But like a few episodes in, I'm just like, I'm at the point now where I'm not just hearing Ron Swanson, and I'm not just hearing like the SNL guys in there, and there's a couple other voices that I recognize. And like the thing I do dig is that the girl's imaginary friend is Alanis Morissette.
Okay.
There's another Bob's Burger people show.
Yeah, because there was one on Apple TV too.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, my sister, since we had just watched, she introduced me to Ted Lasso via Apple TV. She showed me Central Park with Josh Gad, which I was like, oh, this is 100% the Bob's Burger art style, and that same kind of humor. I'm like, oh, they got multiple shows going. All right.
Well, this is like the writers, like the Molyneux sisters, who like wrote for Bob's Burgers and have been the whole time. I'm not sure if it's, I forgot the name of the guy, Lauren whatever, who runs Bob's Burgers.
Yeah,
Bouchard,
Lauren,
I think.
Yeah, Bouchard, something like that. Yeah.
But this pretty much is like, it's a family up in Alaska, Nick Offerman's a single dad, and he's got a bunch of kids. Like, I think like the lead is the oldest daughter. I think Jenny Slate. You probably recognize her from a bunch of stuff. But then you have like Will Forte, sounds like Will fucking Forte.
Right.
That's what he sounds like in everything. And, but like Megan Mullally's in there. Offerman's wife's in there. And Atlanta, again, Alanis Morissette as the imaginary friend. I like it partly because like she's in the sky and I'm like, she's reprising her character of God from Dogma.
Dogma,
that makes me happy. Yeah. I dig it. It's not Bob's. I love Bob's Burgers. I probably like it more than any of us talking right here. It's one of my favorite animated series ever. So I was going to give this a chance no matter what. And I like it. As I'm 5 episodes in. I think there's been a couple more. I'll probably watch it, later tonight, some of it. But I didn't bring it up in stuff we like because I'm not sure how much yet. But I thought maybe you had because I know you'll watch pretty much any animated comedy show eventually.
Yeah, Bobby, that's just the Mike special. I'm watching something. I
thought Mark was going to jump in on it. I was waiting for Mark to jump in.
Hadn't jumped on that one, and there is also another season of Solar Opposites on Hulu too. So there's a lot of good stuff out there. There's always some good stuff on streaming. It's just hard to find what's good and what's worth your while. So I definitely do want to try those out. But I think that's gonna do it for this episode. I want to thank you guys for listening. Thanks for Bobby letting me host. A little rocky here and there, but it's like the kid on the training wheels. Right when you take those wheels off, you're gonna have a couple spills here and there. But we're rolling. And next week we're gonna be breaking down the next UFC card. We have Till and Marvin Vittori. Not much else after that. We got
hashtag Team Marvin. Hashtag Team Marvin over here, boys.
Rooting for Marvin. We got Sam Alvey still on the card.
The preview, Mike or Mark. We're picking Askren versus Paul. That's the fight card we're breaking.
I think we actually get to pick ONE FC next week too. I think they're doing that. Right?
The Askren thing should be a week after. That's the.
But we got ONE FC.
What's in ONE FC?
I think we get Demetrius is fighting. I think they start their US shows that week.
Oh, okay.
I think Demetrius is on there.
Yeah, so we're rolling. We're rolling after this episode. But yeah, I want to thank you guys. I do want to give a shout out to Mike, not only, for, just being part of the podcast. I've been enjoying the stuff he's been putting on YouTube. I do recommend you guys watch. I think a lot of people watch the podcast. I got to give a shout out to his Stuff We Like. Mike takes the time. He puts in those memes. He puts in those GIFs. It makes it fucking entertaining. He's talking about George St. Pierre and he's got the tough memes going on. I'm like, Mike's getting into this. He's making this fun.
Mike, I want the GIF of the New Day superimposed with Adesanya, Usman, and Ngannou.
I feel bad. I want that. He's putting in extra work to put that stuff in. God bless him. But yeah, I want to. And thanks for everyone for listening and watching the stuff on YouTube. However you consume our podcast, super appreciative of it. But that's going to do it for this week. So I want to thank Dr. Law, Kid Presentable, myself, DJ Mark. See you guys next week.
Cheers.